Greetings all, Chuke here from Chuke's Outdoor Adventures. Well, this is my Glock 20 10mm. I'm currently going through some growing pains, as many of you know, trying to figure out which is my favorite 10mm. I'm kind of torn between this, the Springfield XDM, and the new FN 510 Tactical. This is clear, there's nothing in this magazine, but I tend to be very favorable of the Glock 20 10mm, and I get questions all the time. Chuke, what ammo should I use? You know, I live in Idaho, there's Montana, there's grizzlies down here. I just moved to Alaska, I picked up a Glock 20. What 10mm ammunition should I buy that's going to be good, that could save my life if I need it to? A couple things to get out of the way. People always dog me and say that I'm an idiot for telling people that they should choose a 10mm over like a hunting rifle or a 12 gauge shotgun, and they're right. The best bear defense is a 45-70 rifle or a 12 gauge shotgun with slugs, just so much more power, or your hunting rifle. I only talk about the 10mm because if you're hiking and you're not wanting to carry a heavy shotgun with you, this can do the trick. It's not ideal, but it has worked and it's saved people's lives. So I am a fan of the 10mm because of the higher capacity and less recoil, better shots on target than a big bore revolver, which I'm also a fan of, and sometimes I carry big bore revolvers. Anyways, that's another story. I wanted to get into the top 5 factory ammunition that I recommend right now for 10mm. Some of this has a couple caveats, and some things have changed. First of all, Chuck and I from Alaskan Ballistic has been talking about the extreme penetrators from Underwood. Big fan, big fan. Now those, and of course the monumental from Buffalo Bore, those two are on my list. We're going to talk about them, but the reason why we have been so excited about those, especially years past, is because Glocks have polygonal barrels, and I personally do not shoot hard cast lead that is not coated out of my stock Glock barrel. Now, I have a couple times broken that rule, but typically I do not. Typically Chuck does not, and people always comment, oh, I do it all the time, you're an idiot, you just need to clean it well. And that may be true. I mean, there's even some people keep telling me that Buffalo Bore says you can use it on their website in a Glock 20 polygonal barrel just fine. I personally don't. Chuck said he shot hard cast lead through his Glock once, and then he broke it down to clean it, and he actually found ribbons of lead within the barrel. So I'm sure if you get a special solvent and you scrub it really good, it's going to be fine. I don't want to foul my Glock barrel up that much. That's why I don't use it. That's where the beauty of some of these New Jack City 10mm come in, like the Springfield XDM, that have rifled barrels that are just perfect to shoot hard cast. It's not going to do any damage, and even the lockup. Interestingly enough, the chamber support and the lockup and the rifle barrel, we get better velocity out of a Springfield XDM, same length barrel, than we do out of our Glock barrels. So something to think about, because somehow the way it locks up, or the rifle barrel, we're getting more velocity and power out of those barrels. But that being said, I am always going to be a big Glock fan. So the whole reason why I got into those copper alloy bullets is because they can be safely shot through a stock Glock barrel. I do prefer hard cast. I always prefer hard cast, so that's where some of these other newer pistols with the rifle barrels come in. I would always choose hard cast over some of these monometals and extreme penetrators and alloy bullets. But for these Glocks, I think your first choice should be the extreme penetrator and the Buffalo Bore Dangerous Game monometal. So that being said, that's why I choose that. However, now we got these, and we'll talk about this when we go through the list, we got these coated hard cast where you could shoot it through your Glock stock barrel too. So let's just go down the list. First of all, there's a lot of no-name brands. I actually reviewed yesterday this Velo Ammo 10mm 200 grain hard cast. That wasn't bad. I don't think it's as good as some of the big name brands that we're going to talk about, but if it's all you got, It's not bad. We got brands like Grizzly and HSM that you go to the Sportsman's, you just see rows and rows of hard cast by these. Not a big fan, but Chuck has even said if that's all you got, it can work. My problem with some of these cheaper 10 millimeter hard cast brands, especially HSM and sometimes Grizzly, is they don't have the power that Underwood and Buffalo Boar do, and we're seeing a pretty high standard of deviation, that's kind of all over the place for their factory loads. Now, let's just go through the list, and I'll kind of tell you why I rated it this way, but we're going to start with number 5, Underwood Extreme Hunter. Now, this is 150 grain going 1425 feet per second. I've been just kind of memorized by these bullets for years because you look at it, it's this crazy looking copper alloy bullet that's got like a Phillips screw head tip on it, and you think about it, you've got that bullet just spinning, and that is going to act like a drill, and it just does crazy hydrostatic damage in soft flesh-like material. We've done years of studies and penetration tests, even sometimes through actual grizzly and black bear skulls. I destroyed my grizzly bear skull just testing it over and over with these different ammos, and yeah, it did work. So my problem with it, and Chuck has found this too, is with the Extreme Hunter and penetrators. I think one of my buddies was saying because of that ununiform shape, they deviate a lot. Even though they penetrate good, it's very hard for us to capture them in the water jugs because as soon as they hit a layer of different material, they seem to go out the side. So what we want is straight penetration, and that's where some of these flat nose, more regular shaped bullets shine, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Also, interestingly enough, so that was number 5. Number 4 is Underwood Extreme Penetrators. Now those are slightly smaller, 140 grain, going 1,500 feet per second. Really powerful. Interestingly enough, I wounded I killed a black bear, but it was still alive, crawled off in the woods, and with my hunting rifle, and then I dispatched it with my Glock 20 with Extreme Penetrators and shot it in the head once. It was still moving and crawling around. Shot it in the head, it went down the second time. Chuck shot that small black bear, well, mine was small too, on our hunting trip. I've documented that. And with his 7 millimeter mag, he used these Barnes bullets that didn't open up. They were too fast. So I was like, shoot him again, shoot him again. He just kept shooting it through it like a laser beam. They weren't opening up. So this bear crawled, 70 yards away, and we had to go through the brush. Chuck found it with his Glock 40. So Chuck and I tracked it down because he's colorblind, but we tracked down his black bear. Chuck shot it in the head with a Glock 40, longer barrel with Extreme Penetrators. The bear is unfazed, still kicking around. He shot it a second time in the head and it went down. So I don't know, maybe it takes 2 shots. There's your real world evidence of an actual wounded bear getting put down, and it actually took 2 Extreme Penetrators. I think hardcast would have been better myself. But the next, number 3, is Buffalo Boar Dangerous Game Monometal. This is 190 grain, going 1,200 feet per second, 607 foot-pounds of energy. Now you might say, Chuke, why did you list Underwood below and this Buffalo Boar above it? The next one's Underwood, so it's kind of confusing. But the reason why is years ago I might have listed Underwood at the top, but because when I started doing this 5 years ago, Chuck and I would go out. Every time Underwood would chrono above what the box said, sometimes 100 feet per second. It was fabulous. It is still better than all this Grizzly and all this cheap stuff, but I definitely recommend Underwood, but it doesn't chrono like that. Typically, we're lucky to get what the box says. A lot of times it'll be just under the box. Depends what length barrel you use, but it's not like back in the day when we were getting way over what the box says. So a little bit under, a little bit disappointed with Underwood because that's happening. However, Buffalo Boar continues to chrono above what the box says. We found it more powerful on all the tests within the last year, kind of after the pandemic. during and after the pandemic, Buffalo Bore tends to get more than what the box says, while Underwood slightly less. Underwood is still excellent, but that's why I'm kind of listing it low. So that was number 3, the Buffalo Bore Dangerous Game Monometal. And then number 2 is the Underwood High-Tech Coated Hard Cast. Flat nose, 200 grain hard cast. Say it's going 1,250 feet per second, 694 foot-pounds of energy. That's incredible. So even the hard cast, I'm always going to choose above a metal copper alloy if I can. And this stuff, Chuck calls it the lipstick round. It's got the red high-tech coated coating on it, and you can shoot that at a stock Glock barrel. So that's number 2. The number 1 that I am recommending is the heavy 10 millimeter from Buffalo Bore. Heavy 10 millimeter Outdoorsman, 200 grain hard cast flat nose, 1,200 feet per second, 703 foot-pounds of energy. I also really like the 200 grain heavy Outdoorsman. So that is my first choice. You want to go to the store, you see that they have it in stock. There is one thing that the 220 grain seems to give a lot of pistols problems with malfunction. So I will say that I trust a 200 grain 10 millimeter projectile. It's closer to the 180 grain bullet that the 10 millimeter was developed for. So I think that's why the 200 grain, they can give mags some problems. They're a little longer sometimes or heavier. 220 grain, unless you really know your pistol, I might choose a 200 grain. But I'm listing Buffalo Bore Hardcast as the number 1 choice. Let me know what you guys think, if I got anything wrong. This thing is fluid. It's always changing. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Please become a patron if you can. I have links below. Hit the subscribe button if you can. And thanks, guys. It's Chuke, your friend in the field.
My name is Chuke. I like to trade my guns just for fun, but now I have none. Oh, don't get shot by a bear, but I don't care. I got a 10 millimeter. Chuke's Outdoor Adventures. Watch you all die every time.